All right, welcome back, guys. Here we are. This is episode 5, 6 ish, maybe, of the Ballbusters show. I'm Marley. That's Larry, Lawrence, whatever you feel like calling him. And we're here to discuss the head coaching carousel in the NFL again. We've had some hirings, we've had some more firings in terms of OCs and things of that nature, and some openings still available, somewhat surprisingly. Um, I will interject in here quite quickly that we just had some breaking news. Declan Doyle, Chicago Bears offensive coordinator, is joining Jesse Minter's team in Baltimore. Um, Very bright, up and coming young mind. He is the same age as Lamar Jackson. They are both 29 years old. So that'll be interesting. But we'll touch on that more later. Just wanted to get that little piece of breaking news out there. Um, but Lawrence, how you feeling today?
Feeling so good. So excited for this next upcoming season. A lot of shakeups all over the league. Um, we touched on a lot. The last video, what was that, 2 weeks ago? We made the last
I believe so.
coaching
Yeah.
video, and a lot has changed since then. Um, Real quick, I want to just run through some of the names that, um, some of the guys that were fired and where they're at now, what's
By all
going on with
means.
them. So Stefanski, I always mess that up. Uh, was working out. He finally landed with the Falcons. He's got a deal going with them. Mike McDaniel is becoming the OC for the Chargers, but he's still doing some interviews. I think he interviewed with the Bills, so that's interesting. Pete Carroll, not sure what's going to happen with him yet. There's some, he still has expressing interest for coaching, but I don't know if what the market looks like for him anymore. There's some speculation he might go back and take up like an advisory role at USC. Mike Tomlin is done from what we've heard. Raheem Morris, Jonathan Gannon, Brian Callahan, Sean McDermott, they're all still on the hunt. So we'll see what happens with those guys.
No, it's going to be interesting, man. It's a lot of big names still out there in the market, and like you were saying, Tomlin, it's looking like he's taking at bare minimum a year off. He won't be back as a head coach this year. A lot of family issue or family stuff going on. Not exactly sure to what degree, but he has that going on, and he's taking time to prioritize that, which all power to him. So maybe we'll see him back next year, and I think he'll still be in the football world. He'll be on TV in
Definitely.
some capacity. I don't think he'll be able to stay fully away, but not have to be in the day to day grind of being an NFL head coach. The McDaniel thing was interesting. The fact that he was still like checking around, seeing maybe he can grab a head coaching spot, even though there are still jobs available. Which can we blame anyone for wanting to coach Josh Allen? I can't. I would jump at the opportunity. But that being said, it's nice to see that a lot of these head coaches that were fired did get rehired. Um, the Stefanskis of the world. Stefanski was never the problem in Cleveland. I can comfortably say that. I'm not saying he was ever, totally the answer, but he was also not the issue. He was not the problem. So the fact that he didn't have to wait to be able to get that position again is I like that a lot for him. Um, I think Robert Sala getting another opportunity, being Titans head coach, is fantastic. I think a defensive minded coach there is a great move. Um, but we also have this great blend of coaches who, they haven't had this opportunity yet. They haven't had the chance to coach or be at that top level, and now they're getting that opportunity. I like that we got such a mixture of that. But we also have an outlier of sorts. We have a coach that coached for a long time, reached the highest peak of success, and then for years was kind of mired in playoff losses and some seasons of mediocrity. Um, and then a couple, not so great years once leaving that organization to go to a different one. And I'm talking about Mike McCarthy. Um, just to segue into our new head coaches, uh, McCarthy, I never expected to see as an NFL head coach ever again. I'm just gonna be frank. Um, After his years in Green Bay, obviously, a lot of success there, a lot of playoff runs. They got that Super Bowl 45 against the Packers, which maybe a little PTSD almost going on, where they're like, well, he beat us. He must be a good coach. Um, it's it's just so fascinating. McCarthy's coming into the sixth oldest squad in the NFL. They have roughly 45 million in cap, but they have some key things they need to do. They need to re-sign Kyle Duggar, their safety. They have a bunch of other players, maybe not at that top tier, but middle to low tiers that they need to re-sign or replace. And their quarterback is a free agent. Aaron Rodgers is on the open market. So that leaves a lot of questions to be answered about that position. Um, and I'm just curious to hear your thoughts as to why someone would come back after, some years off for a job of this nature.
To be honest with you, I have no idea. I'm not familiar with Mike McCarthy, um, but it's very interesting. I'm curious. I've only heard bad things about this, and I'm curious as to what they were thinking. Maybe he'll surprise us, but I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see the vision.
No, I absolutely don't either. And, I understand the Steelers don't have much practice in recent years with hiring head coaches. Like I said in our prior video, they have the same turnover rate as the Vatican. It's kind of a, use it or lose it type deal, and they've finally lost it. But this leaves so many more questions on the table than questions answered. Um, and I don't really have a whole lot more thoughts. I'm just I'm quite perplexed about this. It's one of the more, if not the
Yeah.
most confusing move
No, I
um
mean,
this
yeah.
offseason.
They
Well,
interviewed
we're not
so
even
many
there.
people. There were, of course, there was, the rumor mill saying that they'll get Crystal Ball from Miami even. And
Mm,
there's so many, pretty decent names still out there looking. I don't understand this one.
I don't understand it either, Lawrence, but who knows? Maybe Pittsburgh knows something we don't. I don't think so, but maybe. Um, but we're gonna keep kicking it in the AFC North, and we're gonna head over to the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns saga has been nothing short of interesting. Let me get some thoughts out of you.
It's been nutty. Um, in classic Cleveland Browns decision making, classic Cleveland Browns ownership, it's been a mess. There was some early speculation that they might end up violating the Rooney Rule. They kind of held off on interviewing minority candidates. They did this past week. I think they got a couple in, so they're safe there. Um, and they landed on Todd Monken from the Ravens. And from what I've heard, this has not been going over well with a certain Jim Schwartz.
Yeah, no, Schwartz is, for lack of better phrasing, pissed. He felt like this was his head coaching spot. This was his job, especially with the high praise he gets from Jimmy Haslam. Regardless of his decision making, he's received high praise um, from the owner. And the defense speaks for itself. Obviously, there's massive talent on that defense with Miles Garrett and their rookie linebacker, whose name is currently slipping me, but had an awesome, awesome season. They have players. They definitely have players, but they've also been coached quite, quite well. Um, and I think it's confusing to me that they wouldn't give the job to Schwartz. It feels like it was his job to lose, and he lost it, but not of his own doing. This is no slander to Todd Monken. Todd Monken's a great candidate, and I think he'll be a very, very solid coach. Um, but when the goal through your whole interview process was to keep Schwartz, where you were having other head coaches interview, and you're like, hey, we'd like you to come here, but this is part of it. Our DC is staying our DC. That leads to a certain level of faith that your coach believes you have in him, especially with the high praise, and then to not get it as a slap in the face. It just is.
Yeah. I
Um,
sorry.
no, by all means.
Jim Schwartz, I don't know if we could consider him a good head coach, his history, but it is very interesting to me why they didn't go that route
Forgive me if I'm lacking in my knowledge at the moment, but was he a head coach before and I don't know about it?
with the Lions. Yep.
That I am totally familiar
And he
with Jim
had a
Schwartz now.
29-51 all-time record with them.
I feel like you guys probably could have found someone with the same first name that would have been successful for you guys, but it feels like you also might move on a little early. Maybe that's just me. But regardless of that, this to go back to what I was saying before, second chances. Look at Sam Darnold. He's been bounced around and claimed to be a bust and things of all these negative natures. He is in the Super Bowl in the first year with his team. That has never happened. Where a guy is in his first year with a squad and goes on to play in the Super Bowl. The only person to also do that, and they actually won the Super Bowl, is Nick Foles in 2017, where he was the backup and came out to win. However, he had already spent a couple years with the team prior. This is the first time a player's in their first year with a franchise and they're in the Super Bowl. Um, and that just shows you that in this league, progression isn't necessarily linear. There might be one good year, maybe some steps back, and then it takes a while. Um, but I think that he's worthy of a second chance, especially with the defense he's cooked up there. Um, and let's all be honest with ourselves, 29-51 with the Lions isn't anything brutal. They've had worse. Um, but to have this mindset of keeping him and lose out on head coaching candidates in part because of that, and then to lose him just because you made the wrong decision is a terrible look for
Yeah,
that franchise. It's a terrible look.
that's a huge loss.
Um, Speaking of terrible looks, the Buffalo Bills. What are we doing? The head coach with the best record since he has been a head coach in that time span, Sean McDermott, leads the NFL in wins. Leads everybody. Andy Reid doesn't have as many wins. And he got fired. What do you think?
I chalk that up to ownership, poor decision making with ownership. We saw the press. The name is slipping me right now. Their owner, but in that press conference, he both said that they would keep, or he both almost in the same breath said that Sean McDermott was going to be fired either way. And I'm trying to put these thoughts together, but he contradicted himself severely, and basically in reference to that shady call with the catch. He both said that it was Sean Dermick's fault and not Sean Dermot's fault. So I chalk that up to poor decision making. Also, they've interviewed some strong names, and I'm not too sure about Joe Brady, but that's where they landed. That's
I
where we're at with them.
I'm not upset with the Joe Brady move. I think it's a good idea to keep him and have him in house because regardless of maybe some failings in the wide receiver room, some underperformances, some games where Josh Allen tried to be Superman and it didn't work out for him. It just ended up in a turnover fest, which happens. Um, that offense obviously rolls. It's a good offense, but I don't think he's suited as a head coach personally. Um, don't get the obviously this is a opinionated statement and things of that nature, but I don't get the head coach energy from him. That Ben Johnson, that Dan Campbell, that Jim Harbaugh, that the players buy in and they're like, it's almost like a general rather than a coach, where you're going into war for him, but you want to fight for him. Um, and I don't know if he necessarily has that magnetism that those other coaches had, which there's a part of me that believes Sean McDermott had that. I think McDermott was a great leader. Every year that team is contending and in a spot to potentially win a Super Bowl, and they haven't done it. Um, they've lost shootouts, they've lost close games, they've lost games in basically every fashion you could imagine. And to go back to what you said, there was a sketchy call that if it flipped, the Bills win that game. Um, it's interesting. I think McDermott will land on his feet and get another head coaching gig. Maybe not this year, but in next coaching cycle. I just don't see how people can look at his body of work and think he's not an NFL head coach.
Yeah.
I simply don't.
Um,
By all means,
yeah, one of the big headlines out of this one was they interviewed Philip Rivers. That was interesting to me. I kind of wanted to see that, but
crazy.
it looks like we're not going to get that.
This is sorry if I may speak for a moment. This is no
Yeah,
slander to Philip Rivers, but that makes no sense to me. A guy whose only coaching experience is coaching what,
high
high school
school. Yep.
football? What? It has shades of the Jeff Saturday move from a couple years back, where his only coaching experience was high school as well, and they had one win. Um, but outside of that, it was it was nothing. Um, it almost feels obviously it was more than just words, but it feels like lip service a little bit, just a little bit of hey, this is what we did, haha, check us out. But it really didn't mean much. I don't think he was ever a strong candidate for them,
Made
but
for a
I
good
could be wrong.
headline.
That's
Yep.
that's the problem with head coaching hirings and like the carousel is a lot of it's conjecture. A lot of it's just people like us talking. We don't know anything. We weren't in those meetings. We don't know what the GM's thinking. Um, which would be nice, but we don't have that opportunity. But it's still so fascinating. Just so fascinating. Um, Personally, I have no more thoughts on Buffalo. I'm intrigued by who they bring in for their surrounding pieces and who's coordinating and things of that nature, but I think we got bigger fish to fry at this point. Well, um, which is going to take us to Baltimore, back to the AFC North. A lot of turnovers in the AFC North. 3 coaches fired, and frankly, the one I expected the most still hanging out. Zach Taylor for the Cincinnati Bengals. The fact that he has a job right now, crazy to me. But that's besides the point. How do you feel about BMO?
Excited. I think there's going to be a lot more interesting moves made here. There's still some speculation about if Lamar Jackson is going to be around by next season, but I don't know how much stock I put in all that since it feels like the ownership is definitely still bought into him.
Mm,
And yeah, I don't expect I don't expect much from this, to be honest with you. I didn't do too many notes on this one.
understand. Um, Honestly, to me, I'm kind of the exact opposite. This is one of the more interesting ones. We had some quotes this offseason. I don't have direct quotes for you guys, but of some falling out between Lamar and Harbaugh, and some other players in the locker room weren't necessarily bought in anymore. And I think it was best for both just for a change of scenery. I really do think that was the case. They did deal with a lot of injuries this year, not necessarily like across the board, but they had key pieces go down for multiple games this year, and that's obviously always going to hurt the team. Um, and I think that they have a very good defense in terms of talent, but the scheming needed improvement. And I don't think it gets much better than Jesse Minter. That Chargers defense looked very nice this year. They definitely had their times where they gave up some points, but it's the NFL. Anything can happen. Um, and their offense is a piece or two away from being I won't say what we think it is because we kind of know what it is, but as we've been talking about for Lamar's whole career, another receiver would be nice. A top flight receiver would be very helpful in that team. And just a little bit of improvement to their O line. They had the 16th ranked O line this year. And that's nothing to sneeze at, but could definitely use improvement. And I think that Minter is a good head coach for this role. Um, I think he's the right guy to bring in, a defensive oriented coach, someone to really shore up that side of the ball when we know they have the talent on the offensive side. And I know there's a lot of discussions with Lamar possibly leaving or being shipped out, whatever you want to phrase it as. But I think he's here for the long haul. If they were willing to move on from Harbaugh, because if there was that friction between them two, I think that they're entirely bought in on Lamar. I don't think that's crazy to say. Um, and bringing in Declan Doyle, as y'all probably know at this point, I am a Bears fan. I love the Bears. And while Ben Johnson is obviously the driving force behind that offense, Declan Doyle is no slouch. He is a great, great football mind, and he will be sorely missed in Chicago. I can promise you that. I was very upset. We were getting ready to record. We were just sitting here chopping it up, getting our notes together, and he heard my reaction when the Adam Schefter notification came through. I was almost in shambles. Um, so I think that's a great move for Baltimore. They got their head coach. They got an OC who he's the same age as Lamar. That's crazy to me. They're on the same timeline. Um, I'm very intrigued by that move, and I'm excited to see how that all goes down throughout the year. Um, but if you're all good here, I'm ready to kick it back to I was going to say kick it back to New York, but I guess we're heading to Jersey because the Jersey Giants made an interesting move and went and got Harbaugh. I didn't expect Harbaugh to land there, but I think in some ways it's a fantastic move. The Giants have the 12th youngest roster as of today in the NFL. A very young team across the board. Scadabo, obviously he went down with a pretty ugly injury. He will be ready for their offseason workouts in April. He will be there to start the workouts. Jackson Dart, if he can keep the concussions down, very, very intriguing quarterback. They got depth and some very key pieces in those key positions where you need it. Andrew Thomas at left tackle is a lockdown. He's fantastic when he's healthy. Malik Neighbors, once again, health is an issue with the torn ACL, but he is a top wide receiver talent when he's on the field. A top 10 ranked offensive line, being ranked number 9 by Pro Football Focus this year. And that's with Thomas missing some games. But they also have a good chunk of free agents, namely Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be their top free agent, where they really want to bring him back to keep that wide receiver depth. I think they do have a great receiver room, but losing Wan'Dale Robinson would be a massive hit to that team. But this roster has the potential. It's got the pieces where you want them. And bringing in a head coach, much less bringing in John Harbaugh, one of the more decorated coaches currently in the NFL, is a fantastic move to me. How you feeling about it?
I feel great about it. I think most of the Giants' problems last season or this season came down to coaching. I think it's It's going to be a great fit for Harbaugh. He's been here before in a way, right? Coming in to a situation where you got this young star. I don't know if we can consider Jackson Dart a star just yet, but a
Mm.
promising, we'll say, quarterback that loves to run the ball, loves to put himself in some tough situations. And Harbaugh did great shaping Lamar Jackson. Harbaugh did great with this kind of run it down your nose offense. I think it's with this decision, it's nowhere but up with the Giants.
Absolutely. I remember watching the Bears play them this year, and frankly, they made me nervous. There was a point in that game where I was like, I was feeling some old bad news Bears vibes, where it was like, okay, this game's gone. We did our 2025 Bears thing where we came back and won it in the fourth quarter. But that was in large part to the fact that Jackson Dart went down with a concussion. That really helped us. I won't say Jackson Dart's a star as of yet, but he's definitely going to be one of those young quarterbacks that everyone's going to have an eye on for quite some time. New York media doesn't hurt that, but regardless of that, he's the talent's there. And now he's got a head coach to put together the pieces, which is better than having Dable. No disrespect, but Harbaugh is definitely an upgrade.
Yeah, they needed to get rid of Dable. Um,
Um,
coach wise, I'm sure Dable isn't the worst coach around, but it just seemed like he has a problem controlling his emotions. Um, and I'm sure that didn't help.
no, absolutely not. And on top of that, I think he's kind of ran his course in New York. He's been there for I want to say 5 years now, something of that nature. I believe he got his full contract, and it hasn't worked out. I think Dable's still talented. I still think he can coach a good offense, but I definitely think moving on was the right idea, especially when you have a Hall of Fame type head coaching talent in Harbaugh available. Um, but I think that takes us to our next team, and we're going to be going to the a little Atlanta Falcons action. They brought in Kevin Stefanski. Personally, I thought that was the move they should have done in the first place, but we'll kick it over to Lawrence. Let's see how you're feeling.
Feel good about this. They still have a weird situation with the QB going on. But they have some pieces. They have Bijan Robinson, just to name one. I think it was a very up and down team this season.
Mm.
Had some impressive wins, had some bad losses. But I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see what Stefanski can do.
No, absolutely. The Falcons were interesting. They were, if they had just beat the Jets, we would have watched them in the playoffs instead of the Panthers. That's how close it was. The Falcons over the last, I believe, 4 years have the most wins after being mathematically eliminated in the NFL. They're like 12-4 or something of that nature. Um, so just kind of an enigma, but you're right. Their quarterback situation is it's a QB hell. It really is. We don't I don't throw that term around lightly because there's obviously teams that have been in terrible quarterback situations, namely the Browns. Um, but having Kirk Kyle Cousins, Kirk Cousins, at 37 years old, being essentially your most stable quarterback is scary. Michael Penix has all the talent in the world, but he just tore his ACL for the third time. That's something that'll change a player's career if you do it once, potentially. I know modern medicine's fantastic in a lot of ways, but it's soft tissue. You can't 100% that. Um, but they have issues in other places. D. Alford, Kyle Pitts, and potentially my favorite name in the NFL, David Onyemata, are all unrestricted free agents this year. Um, all needing to be re-signed or replaced, and it feels like re-sign is definitely the better option there. But that's a good chunk of change to be thrown around. Um, but I believe in Stefanski. If there's anyone that can write out a rebuild, it's him. Um, I've heard some negative things out of some former players, namely Baker Mayfield. After Baker was shipped out of Cleveland due to a lot of conflicting things, but he was playing with a torn labrum and muscling that team through, and they used that as a scapegoat for him playing poorly to ship him out. He still hasn't heard from Kevin Stefanski. He hasn't received a text, a phone call, anything, and it's been years at this point. Um, and some other players from that Brown squad corroborated that, and that's just it's not a great look for a head coach, right? Maybe he's matured a little bit since then, but I think he's a very very talented head coach. Who's coming into a pretty rough situation with the quarterbacks, the free agents. They're missing their first and fifth round picks this year, but I'm just waiting to see if maybe I'm waiting to see how we can control the locker room in this new situation, especially with those reports coming out. It's going to be interesting how the players, I won't say treat them, but sort of maybe tolerate them is the better phrasing there. Um, but I think things look slightly up for Atlanta compared to where they looked with Raheem Morris. The roster is the main issue now. The coach isn't, and that's a step in the right direction. But they're going to need a lot more steps than that. Um, but I think that takes us to our last team who's hired a head coach so far, correct? And that would be the Tennessee Titans with Robert Saleh getting his second chance. Larry, how do we feel?
Very interesting decision. Um, Titans to me seem like a very impatient franchise. Probably another ownership issue. Uh, the only major thing that has me excited with this is we're going to see twice a year the new feud between Robert Saleh and Liam Cohen. Apparently, these guys hate each other. And there's a video of them after a game just this last season. I guess Saleh was alleging that Liam Cohen and the Jags are were engaging in sign stealing, and they had a bit of a spat after a game. So, and now they're going to be in the same division, and they're going to be going against each other twice a year. So maybe we're going to see some more, some Ben Johnson, Mike LaFleur flyby handshakes, some F the Jags, F the Titans post locker room rallies. I'm excited for that. I think it'll be an interesting dynamic.
I'm so excited that rivalries are getting heated again. Coaches are hating each other again. That's how it should be. Watching Matt LaFleur, you were so
Matt
close there.
LaFleur, his brother.
Matt LaFleur and Matt Eberflus sit next to each other at a Marquette basketball game made my skin curl. That's the enemy. I understand to a certain level you're all NFL head coaches and it's like a brotherhood of sorts. But your absolute most
Yeah,
hated team on earth and you're sitting down watching a basketball game with him? No. That's not okay. You should hate him. He's your opponent. It's a history of the Bears losing to the Packers and it shouldn't be treated buddy buddy like that. And I love the fact that we got that out of my favorite rivalry this year, and it seems to be popping up across the league. We're starting to see more of it. Coaches being more animated rather than being coaches in the locker room. Um, Maybe that's a little biased just coming from my situation, watching my coach rip his shirt off so the city could get free hot dogs. Um, it's a different league now. Things feel different. And I think that Liam Cohen, Liam Cohen and Robert Saleh being in the same division is great. It's great, especially for what I won't call a weak division, but one that has less appeal than some other divisions. I think that'll definitely boost it up. And the Titans were interesting this year. They put up a fight against some teams and won some games that I really didn't expect them to win. Um, and they have their young QB. They got Cam Young or Cam Ward. I
Cam Ward, yep.
apologize. Um, and they have pieces around him. They definitely got some pieces. They're still heavily in a rebuild. This is not signing Salah is not the light at the end of the tunnel that's going to get you there. But what he does in these next couple years is, I think they got themselves a great head coach, someone who I think was scapegoated in New York um, for things that weren't his fault. It wasn't his fault that Rodgers tore his Achilles within the first play of the season when he signed with the Jets. Um, he was dragging his team to wins, a 7-9 season where the team was banged up and they you know didn't have what they expected to have on offense, and he was still getting them wins. I think that Salah deserved this second opportunity, and I think he landed in a good spot in Tennessee. Um, I'm looking at my list, and we have another team, Lawrence. We missed one.
Which one?
That is the Miami Dolphins.
The
I'm gonna just keep it a
Dolphins.
stack. I don't have many thoughts on this. I think they
Me
need to
neither.
kind of tear it down and rebuild the entire roster. Tua, I love watching as a football player, but it scares me every time he touches the field now. Um, Tyreek Hill was excited when he got carted off the field. There's a lot of issues there, and I don't think a head coach is necessarily changing that. Much less Halfley, who's someone I wasn't really excited about in the first place. He coaches a solid defense, but I don't think he's anything to necessarily write home about. Um, but it's definitely it's an intriguing move. I don't know if you have thoughts.
Oh, really? Another team that could be potentially a bad QB situation. That's all I
Yeah,
got. Yeah.
yeah, I got nothing. Sorry, guys. They
Sorry,
slipped through the
Dolphins fans.
cracks. I feel for the Dolphins fans. It looked like they were finally, they were back. It was the Dolphins again, and it fell apart quickly. And I'm not a fan of that. It sucks, but that's where we're at. Um, Hopefully, Halfley does something, and they have a good year. But I don't see it personally. Um, but speaking of not seeing good years, we got the two teams with openings still. We got the Cardinals and we got the Raiders. Two jobs that aren't necessarily super sought after, but it's also a head coaching gig. And I'm
It's a
interested
gig.
to hear what you got to say about the Cardinals.
Oh boy. Um, they are getting the rough end of the stick right now. It's not good. It's not good for them. Harbaugh never picked up the phone, never accepted the call. Both Halfley and Sala were slated for second interviews and decided to go somewhere else. Didn't even show up for the interviews. Um, and Sean McDermott flat out not interested. There's a few reasons. There's a few pretty major reasons why this is happening to them. Their owner, Mike Bidwell, notoriously refuses to pay his coaches good money. Um, what we had Gannon this season only made 5 million, only 5 million, right? But for a coach, not great. Andy Reid makes 20 mil. John Harbaugh just signed a deal for the same. And we're talking about a team that's not hurting for money. I mean, they made 5.5 billion last year. Or they're roughly worth 5.5 billion. They made 571 million in 2024. Only paid their players roughly like 360 mil. Um, got another 570 mil from like profit sharing throughout the league.
Mm,
Um, so they're for some reason they don't want to pay a coach, which is definitely going to hurt them. Second reason is it's a tough division. I mean, the other three teams in this division went to the playoffs and they made it a couple rounds in the playoffs. One of these, two of them just battled that for the NFC Championship. One of them's going to the Super Bowl. Um, and it's going to be going kind of segueing into the last reason. It's going to be tough to compete. It's going to be an unnecessary challenge for a coach to go into this division when, again, very, very bad QB situation with this team. So I feel like there's so many options out there right now. Still, there's there's no way anyone would want this job.
No, it's a tough ask, especially being that, like you were saying, the division looks the way it does. Each team in their division won at least one playoff game this year. Two of them won two, and to be in the position that a lot of these coaches are in and go, okay, do I want to go to a team that needs a full rebuild? Has some good, interesting pieces in Trey McBride and frankly, that's the only name coming to mind right now for like a young big piece. Um, that it's a tough ask. It really is,
Yeah.
and I would hate to get lowballed to come into a job that's going to be hard. It's going to be a tough job, and you're getting
Oh yeah.
lowballed on your
Not an
way
easy
in.
task.
It's once again it's a tough ask. I'm
You
definitely
can't.
interested to see who lands there because a lot of the big names have already signed or interviewed there, or like
Yeah.
you said, declined to interview
Just
there.
flat out not interested.
Um, but there's still some coaches left out there, and who knows what might happen. I think if they get a good name, it would definitely change my opinion on the matter, but
Yeah.
not a whole lot. Not a whole lot.
It's still tough going for them.
It is. It's going to be tough sledding for a while, but there is a team still looking for a head coach that I think could definitely flip their script in the coming year or two if they play their cards right, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, there's a lot of news around Max Crosby and him potentially being gone. Hopefully, uh, but it's their offense needs a lot of work. Um, they were another team that took the Bears right down to the wire. We had to block a field goal to beat them. It's weird, the NFL is weird, but it kind of looks like Fernando Mendoza is going to be going there. He seems to be slated at the 1-1. So we'll see how he does in an NFL system. They obviously drafted Ashton Genty last year. last year, put him alongside Geno Smith. Geno Smith didn't work out. Genty had a great year, but not exactly what I bet most people were expecting. Um, they need to build in the trenches. It's as simple as that. Um, their offensive line has been poor, to say the least. Let me grab the exact number for you. It was actually it was dead last. It was the 32nd ranked offensive line. That's
And
why it took me so long to find it. I had them in slot in like the 25 ish. But that's the key. It's hard to draft a quarterback and a running back that high, presuming they go quarterback with the 1-1, and not have the line there, not have anything built up in the trenches to protect them or allow them to succeed. And I think that, and this is in no way disrespect to Pete Carroll, um, that was a bad move in the first place. A coach of that age needing to do a full
yeah,
rebuild, it didn't make sense to me. And they've kind of, in my opinion, flunked the dunk on this head coaching cycle a little bit. Definitely some players or some coaches that feels like they should have gone after a little harder, especially in a division that is also difficult. The Chiefs obviously didn't make the playoffs this year, but they're obviously a threat still for next year. Um, Denver lost in the AFC Championship game 10-7 without their starting quarterback. Um, and the Chargers had a lot of injuries, but they still played playoff football as well. And it's another situation of it's a tough gig to want.
Going to be a tough one.
It's
Yeah,
gonna it is. You're getting dealt a tough hand, but I like the position they're in more than the position the Cardinals are in. That's just
absolutely.
my opinion. That job
I
is more
uh,
appealing.
I think this is going to be the most exciting rebuild that we're going to see in the next couple years. I remember earlier this season, kind of just periodically checking in on them, their situation, and being like, "Wow, this is depressing." These guys are going to be in the trenches for a long time, but I see a lot of optimism now. I mean, Mendoza would be pretty interesting if they can get him. That's what it's looking like. Uh, they just got to figure out who's gonna be leading. There's Clint Kubiak seems favored at the moment.
Mm.
They're also, I guess, still floating around like David Webb and Mike LaFleur. Um, there's also some speculation about McDermott. But if they get a decent coach in here, this could be huge for them. And they get a good pick this first round. We could be looking at a very interesting situation.
No, we absolutely could. I almost, frankly, part of me sees them maybe sliding back a couple picks in the draft. Um, maybe I don't know what the exact lineup looks like, but I don't believe that there's a lot of QB hungry teams following them in the next couple picks. So maybe they get a little trade up action. I'm not exactly sure. That would be nice to bolster their roster a little extra. But I do like a Kubiak fit there with, a young running back. He's going to have a young quarterback, I have to imagine. Um, I think Kubiak could fit well in terms of building that squad. But, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we get some more answers and it doesn't have to be speculation. It can just be information. Um, but, especially if it's Kubiak, that's not going to happen until after the Super Bowl. So we got a little bit more time on our hands. You got any other thoughts on that, Lawrence?
Nope. Other than this is, just a mess.
There's a reason we
And I
called it
hate it.
the coaching crisis instead of the coaching carousel the other week. Um, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting offseason. We're not even in the offseason yet. We still got a Super Bowl to play. That is kind of a thought I had. I hate the fact that we're doing all this head coaching stuff in the season. Like I know it's postseason, but the season's not over yet, and we're already talking about next year. It kind of feels like a conflict of interest. Let's just stay on the
It
first
definitely
thing.
is. Yeah.
Especially with interviews and stuff like that happening. I know we've touched on that in the past, but it makes no sense for coaches to get interviewed when they're coaching in the playoffs. Let's push it. We got plenty of off season. You know, um, their preseason workouts don't start until April. Most teams, it's towards the end of April. There's no reason to be doing this, this early. Um, but in saying that and talking about the Super Bowl, we are what are we about 12 days out at this point? 11 days out. I'm so stoked. I'm so ready for the Super Bowl. It's going to be a great one. We got a great matchup. Going to be a defensive slugfest, if I had to imagine. Um, but we'll be here for a preview of that next week. We're going to run through the matchup, talk about some injuries, some of the X factors, the key points in this game that's going to sway things one way or the other. And hopefully by then, Arizona and Las Vegas have figured out what they're going to do, and we can talk about that too. Um, we're excited to keep bringing the information to you guys, even if it's information plenty of other people have out there, and we're just here to bring it in another form, man. Um, What, you got anything, Lawrence?
Yeah, nothing.
All right, guys, we're gonna call it wraps there. Thank you to anyone that's watching. If you're still watching, if you're not, thanks for showing up in the first place. But we'll catch you sometime next week, guys.